Zhang, you know your current situation is quite inconvenient, right? Liu Wei rested his arm on the sofa's backrest, his leg crossed over the other. You might as well be straightforward to Brother Bai. Chen Mingsheng asked, be straightforward about what? You can't do the job, Liu Wei said. You see, you've just returned. Given your previous relationship with Brother Bai, it's dishonorable for him not to take care of you. But if he does, considering your, Liu Wei gestured at Chen Mingsheng's leg, given the condition you're in, what can you possibly do? Chen Mingsheng chuckled and took a sip of his beer. Liu Wei continued, just make it clear to Brother Bai and let others do the work. With that fool around, you don't have to worry. Chen Mingsheng looked at Liu Wei and said, if you talk about Bai Weiwei like this in front of Brother Bai, you can quit working. Liu Wei's face changed. Are you going to tell Brother Bai? Then he sneered disdainfully. Who are you kidding? I don't believe you see her as a normal woman. Chen Mingsheng said, what I think of her is not important. Liu Wei leaned in, smirking vulgarly. So, how is it? Have you tried? What's it like? Chen Mingsheng looked at Liu Wei and asked, do you know why Brother Bai hardly lets you see Bai Weiwei? Liu Wei understood Chen Mingsheng's implication and gave him a glance. He leaned back, dismissively saying, Tsk, let me tell you, women are just for pleasure. There's no point thinking too much about it, okay? Chen Mingsheng chuckled, placed a bottle of beer in front of him and said, indeed there's no point. Come on. Liu Wei pinched the head of the beer bottle, shaking his leg as he tapped on the glass. What do you mean by this? Chen Mingsheng calmly said, since we're here, why not have a drink? Liu Wei snorted, picked up the beer bottle and started drinking. As for people like Liu Wei, self-centered, insatiable, and extremely impulsive, when he's fired up, he dares to knife anyone. But on the flip side, such people are easy to appease. As long as you indulge them and give them enough face, no further consideration is required. After 3 bottles of beer, Liu Wei was already getting tipsy. He wouldn't be like this if it was just anyone else pouring him drinks. The key was that these beers were from Chen Mingsheng, the very Chen Mingsheng who once brought him out from this very chess club and never showed him any respect. Through blurred eyes, Liu Wei looked at Chen Mingsheng's missing right leg. He was inwardly thrilled, so much so that he nearly broke out laughing. I say, Zhang Ming. Burp, Liu Wei burped due to the alcohol, then continued, you never expected I'd come this far, did you? Chen Mingsheng paced his drinks. Whenever Liu Wei drank a glass, he'd drink one himself. Liu Wei raised his hand and heavily patted Chen Mingsheng's amputated leg, his face crumpling. Goodness. It's just this much left. You really have it rough, Brother Ming. Chen Mingsheng looked at Liu Wei's hand, his eyebrows furrowed slightly, but he quickly relaxed them. He nodded at Liu Wei. Yes, at this rate, who knows, I might end up calling you brother one day. This pleased Liu Wei, and he emptied half a bottle in one drink. After finishing, he leaned back on the sofa contentedly. He chuckled a few times, obviously tipsy. No need to wait, you can, burp, prepare to call me brother now. Chen Mingsheng hit Liu Wei's bottle with his own and replied, let's see if you get a chance next year. Liu Wei, annoyed, rolled his eyes. He placed his beer bottle on the low tea table and dismissively said, next year? Try next week. Chen Mingsheng, looking at him in surprise, asked, are you joking with me? Liu Wei seemed uninterested in explaining more. He gave Chen Mingsheng a meaningful glance and then focused on his beer. Chen Mingsheng opened 2 more beers. After that, Liu Wei didn't talk much. Chen Mingsheng tried to coax more out of him, but eventually just focused on drinking with him. Liu Wei's alcohol tolerance was average, but today was exceptional. After less than 9 bottles, he was knocked out. Chen Mingsheng, taking advantage of Liu Wei's dizziness, suggested, lie down for a bit, you'll sober up. Liu Wei was originally planning to vomit, but after hearing Chen Mingsheng's words, he did lay down on the sofa. He flipped up his shirt, revealing his belly, scratched it a couple of times and promptly fell into a deep sleep. By the time Chen Mingsheng finished the few remaining sips of beer, he could hear the sound of Liu Wei's snores. He turned to regard the man sprawled beside him, listening to his even breaths. After another 5 minutes, Chen Mingsheng put down his beer bottle, reached over, and searched inside Liu Wei's clothes. He found a cell phone in Liu Wei's pocket. Liu Wei's phone was the latest model. After unlocking it, Chen Mingsheng saw a sexy model as the wallpaper. He checked the call log, memorizing the last 10 calls. Then he opened the messages and started flicking through them. The most recent messages were exchanged with women. At first, Chen Mingsheng didn't understand, thinking that Liu Wei's woman was a little schizophrenic. It only took him a moment longer to realize that Liu Wei was chatting with 3 different women. Chen Mingsheng didn't want to read these messages and was about to exit the conversation when a sentence caught his attention. A woman that Liu Wei had labeled as Zhao Jing seemed to want to schedule a time to meet Liu Wei in a hotel room. Amid all their flirtatious exchanges, there was a piece of conversation that went like, "I can't do next week, I have to go out of town on Tuesday." "Where are you going?" "I'll come with you." "I'm going on business, why would I bring you along?" "I want to go with you. I can even wash your clothes and cook for you." "Or are you planning to leave me here to find other women?" "You little tease, always thinking about these things." "I have serious matters to deal with, and I can't take you." "Where are you going?" "None of your business." Chen Mingsheng checked the timestamps. The conversation appeared to have happened around the same time. In the following 15 minutes, Liu Wei sent 3 or 4 more messages, but the woman named Zhao Jing didn't reply. Perhaps sensing that the woman was getting upset, Liu Wei tried to appease her. "All right, I'll only be away for 4 or 5 days. I'll be back soon." The woman named Zhao Jing eventually responded. "Why so long? Where are you going?" "As I said, you wouldn't understand." "Have you heard of Yanbian?" "What's that?" "I told you, you wouldn't know." After that, they continued their playful bickering. Chen Mingsheng read for a while longer before locking the phone. The words were incorrectly written, but the sound was still there. Yanbian. Chen Mingsheng scrolled through a few more messages, but none of them contained any useful information. He turned off the phone and placed it back in Liu Wei's pocket. Chen Mingsheng left before Liu Wei woke up. He drove to a hotel, skipping the front desk to head straight for the elevator. Chen Mingsheng arrived at a room on the 5th floor and knocked. The door was opened by old Zhu. Chen Mingsheng, leaning on his crutch, entered and immediately wrinkled his nose. "I thought there was a fire in this room. Couldn't you at least open a window?" Old Zhu closed the door tight. "You'll get used to it after a while." Including Chen Mingsheng, there were 4 people in the room: Old Zhu, Wen Lei, and a tall, slim, middle-aged man. Upon seeing him, Chen Mingsheng paused, then stood straight and saluted. "Captain Liu." This middle-aged man was Liu Liwei, the one who replaced Yan Zhengtao. Liu Liwei nodded at him, saying, "You have been working hard these days." Chen Mingsheng shook his head, organizing all the information he'd recently gathered. "I have a few phone numbers here. You can track them." Chen Mingsheng passed the paper with the phone numbers to Wen Lei, who quickly entered them into the computer. Both Old Zhu and Liu Liwei were smoking. Old Zhu contemplated for a moment and said, "Yanbian?" He glanced at Liu Liwei. "Could they be selling to North Korea?" Liu Liwei said, "It's unclear. We need to contact the Jilin police force as soon as possible." Chen Mingsheng, leaning on his crutch, moved to Wen Lei's side. Wen Lei was working quickly on his computer. "Brother Mingsheng," Wen Lei greeted as Chen Mingsheng sat beside him. Old Zhu and Captain Liu were discussing something seriously. Chen Mingsheng looked at the computer screen and asked, "Finished recording?" "Yes, it's done," Wen Lei replied. Chen Mingsheng looked at the screen displaying a calendar and weather forecast and suddenly asked Wen Lei, "Can this weather app display forecasts all over the country?" Wen Lei looked at him, glanced at the screen, and understood what Chen Mingsheng meant. "Yes, Brother Mingsheng, it's connected to the internet." "You?" Wen Lei sneaked a peek at Old Zhu, finding he wasn't paying attention. Then he quietly asked Chen Mingsheng, "Brother Mingsheng, are you thinking about checking the weather in your wife's place?" Chen Mingsheng nodded. Wen Lei clicked open a remote northern city. Chen Mingsheng looked at the blue marker, which had a small snowflake spinning slowly around it. Chen Mingsheng had a sudden realization. It was snowing there today. Chen Mingsheng stared blankly at the small snowflake, at a loss for words. Turning to look at Old Zhu, only to find his attention was elsewhere, Wen Lei quietly asked Chen Mingsheng, "Brother Mingsheng, have you been in contact with your wife?" Chen Mingsheng slowly shook his head. "You haven't contacted her once since you got back?" Wen Lei pressed. Chen Mingsheng lowered his head, uttering a soft hum. "Are you afraid they'll find out?" Wen Lei asked, regarding Chen Mingsheng's expression. "No need to worry, they can't trace it." Chen Mingsheng whispered, "It's not about being found out." "Then what are you afraid of?" Wen Lei asked. Chen Mingsheng fell silent again. He lowered his head and didn't respond. Are you afraid of being distracted?" Wen Lei cautiously questioned. Chen Mingsheng pursed his lips, finally nodding slightly. Wen Lei sighed, that makes sense. After all, this isn't an ordinary job. Hang in there, brother Mingsheng. Chen Mingsheng gave a small smile and patted Wen Lei on the shoulder. Over there, old Zhu and Liu Liwei had finished their discussion. Old Zhu turned around, noticing Chen Mingsheng and Wen Lei. Hey, what are you two grown men chatting about? We're playing on the computer. Do you want to join? Wen Lei replied with a chuckle. Old Zhu glared at him. I don't do that. Old Zhu, representing an older generation in the force, didn't like using computers or know how to operate them well. Nevertheless, he beckoned Chen Mingsheng and said, Mingsheng, come over here. Chen Mingsheng sat beside old Zhu, who was showing him a small notebook. He pointed to what was in the notebook while saying, take a look at this. I've put together all the information we have. Can you see if anything's wrong? Chen Mingsheng took the notebook and started scanning it. The contents were a compilation of all the information gathered since Chen Mingsheng returned, including Bai Ji's and the others' activities, as well as the information revealed by Liu Wei today. Old Zhu had organized these into 2 pages. After reviewing it all for about 15 minutes, Chen Mingsheng closed the notebook and confirmed no issues. Good, Liu Liwei put down his cigarette, adding, that's settled then. Old Zhu, we should head back soon to prepare. Right, old Zhu agreed, snuffing out his cigarette and standing up. Chen Mingsheng also got up, following their lead. Liu Liwei turned to him. Chen Mingsheng, stand by these next few days and let us handle this. Chen Mingsheng didn't respond. Noticing Chen Mingsheng's silence, Liu Liwei exchanged a look with old Zhu, asking, what's the matter? Do you have other suggestions? Without raising his head, Chen Mingsheng muttered, Captain Liu, may I come along? Both Liu Liwei and old Zhu paused in surprise. Come along? Why would you want to go? Questioned old Zhu. Chen Mingsheng found himself unable to articulate a reason. Old Zhu frowned and said, no, you can't. You have no reason to go, and for one, you can't follow us around. For another, this matter with Bai Ji has nothing to do with you. If you join rashly, it will arouse his suspicion. After old Zhu finished speaking, he looked at the still silent Chen Mingsheng. He was about to say something more when Liu Liwei stopped him. Chen Mingsheng, do you want to avenge Captain Yan? Chen Mingsheng lifted his head to look at Liu Liwei. Old Zhu shook his head with a bitter smile upon hearing this. Liu Liwei said seriously, do you want to kill him yourself? When Chen Mingsheng heard the words kill him, his expression seemed a bit dazed, as if the scene that had been replayed in his mind many times suddenly surfaced before his eyes. His gaze focused on a certain area in the void, and because of the scene in his mind, his eyes took on a deep and ruthless look. Chen Mingsheng. Suddenly a loud yell made Chen Mingsheng abruptly shift his gaze back to Liu Liwei. Liu Liwei was staring intently at Chen Mingsheng with his eyes full of authority. Chen Mingsheng looked into those eyes. It took quite a while for him to regain his bearings. He raised his hand, rubbed his face, and muttered in an apologetic tone, sorry, I was daydreaming. Liu Liwei's silence continued. His gaze was still on Chen Mingsheng, as though waiting for him to fully calm down. Chen Mingsheng, I know the sacrifice of Captain Yan has hit you hard, Liu Liwei said, but you must remember, you're a police officer. Chen Mingsheng inhaled deeply, nodded, and quietly said, I know. Some people in the past, old Zhu suddenly spoke up. Among those who went undercover, some got addicted to drugs, and some were completely immersed in that world and did not want to come back. Chen Mingsheng stood aside, head lowered. But I believe you won't. Old Zhu looked at Chen Mingsheng, his tone even somewhat relaxed. When Captain Yan introduced you to me, he said that you were strong here. Old Zhu patted Chen Mingsheng's left chest as he spoke. As he patted, his own eyes began to redden. You're strong here. Chen Mingsheng clenched his teeth and closed his eyes. Seeing them like this deeply moved Liu Liwei. What's all this? Said Liu Liwei. Let go, we have a pressing task at hand. He pulled old Zhu away from Chen Mingsheng and continued. Once this mission is done, we'll have time to spend together. Old Zhu let go of Chen Mingsheng. Liu Liwei said, we'll go first, you can leave a little later. When Lei, who had finished packing up the computer, joined them, old Zhu told Chen Mingsheng, stay in touch. I'll notify you if there is any new information. Chen Mingsheng nodded and replied, okay. After old Zhu and Liu Liwei left, Chen Mingsheng sat back down on the bed, burying his face in his hands, trying to calm himself down. For a moment, he genuinely desired to kill Liu Wei with his own hands. No law, No trial, just using the simplest, most primal method to torment him to death slowly, bit by bit, with his hands, with a knife. Chen Mingsheng clamped his teeth together. He had been a bit restless recently. He never used to be this way before. Why now? Chen Mingsheng inevitably thought of young Zhao. Whenever he thought of her, his mind would become calm. He got up, leaning on his crutch as he moved to the window. Looking out the window, the trees outside were still lush and full of life. But today, where she was, it was snowing. Chen Mingsheng tried to imagine adding snowflakes to the view before him, but found that he couldn't do it. These were two entirely different places, two completely different worlds. In the empty room, Chen Mingsheng's longing for Yang Zhao was like a tide, surging with each leaf outside the room and each breeze. What was she doing? Was her work going smoothly? Was her younger brother listening to her? Did she miss him? Chen Mingsheng lowered his head and, without realizing it, his hand was clenched tightly into a fist. He forced himself not to think about it, but this time it wasn't as easy as before. Chen Mingsheng took out his phone, pressed the shutdown button, and then threw the phone on the bed. But it wasn't long before he picked it back up again. Upon restarting the phone, Chen Mingsheng's hand seemed to move of its own accord, quickly dialing a number. Then he brought the phone to his ear. "I'm sorry, the subscriber you dialed is currently unavailable." Chen Mingsheng froze. He took the phone away from his ear and looked at the screen. Although he couldn't identify the problem, he hung up and redialed the number. The polite, sweet voice from the phone remained unchanged. "I'm sorry, the subscriber you dialed is currently unavailable." Sweat started to pool in Chen Mingsheng's palm. He reconsidered the number, wondering if he had misremembered it. Despite knowing this was unlikely, as he could never forget a number once he had intentionally memorized it, especially Yang Zhao's, he couldn't shake the doubts. Chen Mingsheng, with phone in hand, dialed the number over a dozen times and got the same response each time. He persisted until the phone was hot and its battery almost dead, yet he couldn't get through. Night fell, and the phone's battery was down to less than 3%. Finally, Chen Mingsheng called Wenlei. It seemed Wenlei was busy on his end. "Hello, Brother Sheng. Zhao Lei." "What's up, Brother Sheng? Are you looking for old Zhu?" "No, I called you." "Me? What's wrong?" Chen Mingsheng took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. "Are you alone right now?" Wenlei said, "Yeah, they're in a meeting." Chen Mingsheng said, "Zhao Lei, I need your help." Wenlei, startled, quickly responded, "What are you talking about, Brother Sheng? You're scaring me." "There's no need to ask, just tell me what you need." Chen Mingsheng said, "Can you help me contact your sister-in-law?" Wenlei paused. "Contact sister-in-law? Now?" Chen Mingsheng's voice wavered as he tried to control himself. "I just called her, but I couldn't get through." "Huh?" Wenlei said, "You couldn't get through? Was she on a call?" "No." Wenlei said, "Don't worry, Brother Sheng, give me her number." Chen Mingsheng gave him Yang Zhao's number, to which Wenlei responded, "Wait a moment, Brother Sheng, let me check for you." Chen Mingsheng said, "All right, Zhao Lei, please hurry up." Okay, right away. Wait for my call." After hanging up, Chen Mingsheng sat on the bed, counting the seconds as they passed. He kept telling himself that nothing could have happened to Yang Zhao, yet he found himself sweating profusely in the back despite his efforts to stay calm. About 20 minutes later, Wenlei's call came in and Chen Mingsheng picked up immediately. "Hello, Zhao Lei. Brother Sheng. How is it? Did you find out anything?" "I did," Wenlei confirmed. "Brother Sheng, don't worry. The card was reported lost at the service station a few days ago. It seems your sister-in-law was unlucky and lost her phone." Chen Mingsheng asked, "Are you sure about this?" "Absolutely," Wenlei assured him. "Your sister-in-law processed the card replacement with her ID card. The card has been reissued but hasn't been activated yet. I suppose she hasn't had time to buy a new phone." Chen Mingsheng fell silent. "Hello? Brother Sheng?" Chen Mingsheng came back to his senses and said to Wenlei, "Thank you. Why are you being so formal with me?" Wenlei chuckled. "Just give me a call whenever you need something." Chen Mingsheng hung up the phone just as his battery died. Looking at the shutdown screen, he let out a long breath. Did his heart finally settle? Not entirely. Chen Mingsheng tilted back onto the bed, one hand over his forehead, massaging his temples forcefully. Yang Zhao? Yang Zhao? Still Yang Zhao. Chen Mingsheng was unsure about his feelings. Suddenly getting up, he grabbed his crutches and headed out the door. He drove his car to an underground car park and left it there. Then he got out and hailed a taxi on the street. Upon getting in the car, the driver yawned and glanced at Chen Mingsheng's crutch, asking where to. Chen Mingsheng closed the car door, his gaze deep. Placing his crutch on the back seat, he said in a low voice, "The airport." When Zhao opened the door, she looked expressionlessly at the grinning man outside. "Zumai, has your company gone out of business?" Zumai feigned surprise and looked at Zhao. "How did you know?" Zhao was not in the mood for his jokes. She gave a cold snort, turned around and went inside. Zumai followed her in and closed the door. As he was removing his shoes at the entrance, he said, Zhao, is there anything to eat?" Zhao replied, "You really think this is a hotel where everything is ready for you?" Zumai responded, "Your place is much better than a hotel." He put on slippers and wandered around the house, finally making his way to the kitchen. Zhao, Zumai poked his head out from the kitchen door. "Can you make something for me to eat?" Zhao, sitting on the couch, said, "There's no rice." Zumai asked then, "Do you have any vegetables?" Zhao replied, "No vegetables either." Zumai slumped against the kitchen door, exasperated. Zhao, who is this kitchen for exactly? Zhao sat on the couch, seemingly deep in thought, murmuring to herself, "Yeah, who is it for indeed?" That man had been gone for over a month, leaving no word behind. Zhao couldn't count how many times she had awakened from her sleep, staring blankly into the darkness of her room. Zumai sat across from Zhao, whispering, Zhao, I'm really worried about you." Zhao looked up and said nonchalantly, "Don't be. I'm fine." Zumai replied, "You don't look fine." Zhao lit a cigarette, leaned back on the couch and said, "So you've been coming here 3 times a week?" Zumai agreed, "Yes, that's correct." Zhao pondered, "And you just leave your business to fend for itself?" Zumai admitted, "I can't deny I'm a die-hard businessman, but Zhao, I'm not blinded by greed. I have more important things than money." Zumai glanced at Zhao, continuing, "For instance, his candid confession left Zhao silent for a moment. She looked into Zumai's eyes. He had a pair of beautiful eyes, with the characteristic attractiveness of being mixed blood. Zhao had to admit, when she first saw him, she was not immune to his looks. Suddenly, Zhao stated, "Zumai, you're divorced." Her tone was very certain, and Zumai, having no intention to hide, acknowledged sadly, "You figured it out." Zhao remained quiet, a cigarette between her lips. Looking at Zhao, Zumai slowly shook his head, remarking, Zhao, you can't keep doing this." Zhao retorted, "Do what?" Zumai said, "You saw my pain and sorrow back then, but you remained absorbed in your own world, indifferent to me. Now you've woken up from that world, and you need someone who shares your feelings. That's when you remember me." Zhao put down her cigarette and asked, "Then why didn't you tell me?" Zumai didn't reply. When he wasn't smiling, his gaze held a unique calmness. Zhao laughed lightly, saying, "Zumai, you are really smart." It was an absolute compliment, but there was no joy on Zumai's face. "You really are smart." Zhao thought to herself, "If not assured, don't take action." Emotions were unlike business. In this world, Zumai never took risks. He smartly flirted and danced around, waiting until he knew that you harbored the same feelings for him before truly letting himself go. The old Zhao was the same. "I'm not worried," Zumai said. "You can't truly be with that man." Zhao looked up at him. Zumai continued, "Do you remember what I said before? At that time, Zhao, you were like a high school student experiencing their first love." "Do you know why I say a high school student?" Zhao met his gaze coldly, and Zumai went on, "Because children of that age are the most sensitive and impulsive. They've just begun to understand the world, yet they're still naive. They can defy everything for their feelings simply because they haven't yet touched upon the things that would make them reconsider." Zhao, Zumai concluded, "You aren't a high school student anymore." Zhao extinguished her cigarette and stood up. "How long are you planning to stay?" Zumai replied, "I've given myself a vacation." Vacation? Zhao couldn't hide her surprise. Although Zumai understood how to live life to the fullest, he seldom took vacations. Many times, Zhao had felt that his greatest joy in life was making money. Of course, he also enjoyed dealing with antiques, something he had in common with her. Zhao said, "If you want to stay, stay. I've got work to do." Ah, right, Zumai seemed to suddenly remember. I forgot to tell you something. I've also given you a vacation. This time, Yang Zhao's brows furrowed. Zumai, are you okay? Zumai answered her seriously. I'm fine, really. So the job is off? Of course it's not, Zumai said, just not now. What is it that you were working on? Oh, it should be that piece of porcelain. I don't want it to end up like your phone. Yang Zhao fell silent. That was 4 days ago. Zumai had come over then too. Yang Zhao had been cooped up in her room for several days, working non-stop with her phone by her side. For obvious reasons, Yang Zhao couldn't concentrate on her work. She tried to divert her attention by keeping herself busy, to little effect. Regardless of where she placed her phone, she would involuntarily glance at it. She forced herself not to think about it, not to look, but every hour she would still take her phone, staring at its clean screen. With each ring, her heart would skip a beat, only to be greeted by marketing calls or spam messages. Yang Zhao would hang up after hearing the first sentence. She hated this sort of life. So when Zumai came by that time, he forcibly dragged her out of the room, asking her to have some good food and take a stroll outside. One evening, she and Zumai were walking along the path near their house. As they walked past a man-made river, Yang Zhao stopped on the bridge. With the look on her face, Zumai was afraid she was going to jump into the river the next second. He tightly held on to Yang Zhao's wrist, calling, Zhao Zhao, Zhao Zhao. Yang Zhao, of course, wasn't about to jump in. She casually glanced at Zumai, turned around, and fiercely threw her phone out of her hand. The phone drew an arc in the air before splashing into the water. While it wasn't Yang Zhao herself who jumped, Zumai was still slightly surprised. He looked at the rippling water, then at Yang Zhao, and finally gave a whistle. Wow, Zumai remarked with a sense of wonder. Zhao Zhao, you really are. Yang Zhao ignored him, turned around without a word and walked away after tossing her phone. Zumai watched her figure quietly. Yang Zhao was introverted and rarely expressed her emotions openly. But on that day, she let it out by throwing away her phone. Zumai knew then that something was bothering Yang Zhao. Whether to take a vacation or not is your business. I have to get back to work. Do as you please, Yang Zhao finished, walking into her study. She sat at her desk and automatically picked up a book to read. In a little while, Zumai walked in. Yang Zhao heard him but didn't look up. As soon as Zumai entered, he smelled the strong scent of paint. He came to the center of the study and saw a painting falling silent. To be exact, it was an unfinished oil painting, about a third complete. It was set up on an orderly easel, with a stool on the side, palette and paint box below. The painting was entirely cool-toned, depicting a night scene as if viewed from inside a room. The dim room filled with colors of blue, green and purple, so rich they were almost black. In the room was a window, located on the edge of the painting, half open, revealing the similarly icy cold blue-black sky outside. There seemed to be something in the distance, not displayed on the painting but rather appearing as a blur. Zumai stood in front of the painting, silent for a long while. Yang Zhao finally put down her book and asked, "What are you looking at?" Without turning his head, Zumai answered, "Your painting." Yang Zhao glanced at the painting too, but quickly averted her eyes. Although it was her own artwork, she found it impossible to look at it calmly. Lowering her head, Yang Zhao heard Zumai say, "It's been a long time since you picked up a brush. Your technique is still as skilled." Yang Zhao said indifferently, "Mr. Zhu, you've seen many renowned paintings. My artwork is just showing off in front of an expert." "It's not the same," Zumai said. "It's not the same, Zhao Zhao. Your paintings have a kind of indifferent passion. You never told me you could paint like this." Yang Zhao flipped a page of her book casually, saying, "You never asked me. If I asked you, would you tell me?" Yang Zhao's gaze fell on the book, or perhaps not. She calmly said, "What question? You won't know until you ask." "Then I'm asking you." Yang Zhao paused, and Zumai had already moved next to her. His hand gently covered her book. She looked at the lines on his large hand, clear and clean. Zumai leaned over, and Yang Zhao smelled the faint scent of his perfume. "I'm asking you," Zumai whispered in her ear, "where has the man in the painting gone?" At some point in time, Yang Zhao lost herself. Zumai's question seemed to come from a distant place. From a rainy night, from a narrow restroom, from a small bedroom where the sunset could shine in, from a food stall that flashed blinding white light, from a dark, humid mountain hut where you could see a pagoda. Yang Zhao heard her own voice respond lightly. Zhu Mai, are you crazy? There's no one in this painting. Zhu Mai didn't speak. Yang Zhao knew that he didn't believe her, nor did she believe herself. Zhu Mai saw right through her. He was very smart and had a deep appreciation for art. Yang Zhao closed her book and stood up, walking to the window. It was snowing outside. This was the first snow of the year. The snowfall wasn't heavy, but it had been snowing for 2 full days. The winter in this city was completely oppressive. During snowfall, both the sky and the earth were a grayish white. It was an indescribable, vast and vacant sight. Zhu Mai looked at Yang Zhao. Her silhouette by the window seemed cold and fragile. The grayish-white snow appeared to give off a faint light, slightly softening her outline. She was a bundle of contradictions, Zhu Mai thought, yet she remained so independent and intact. Zhu Mai walked up and gently wrapped his arms around her. Can we talk about me now? Standing by the window, they both felt a slight chill. Zhu Mai's face pressed against Yang Zhao's hair. He sniffed her fragrance and slowly closed his eyes. Zhao, I'm also upset. Zhu Mai's magnetic voice echoed in Yang Zhao's ear in the silence between heaven and earth. Even if I don't mind, you can't bully me too much. Yang Zhao gazed at the cold snow outside, her face calm. In the serenity of the snow, Yang Zhao seemed to hear Chen Mingsheng's somewhat husky, yet restrained voice again. He said, Yang Zhao, I want to marry you. Chen Mingsheng caught the last flight of the day. After nearly 5 hours of flight time, it was already 1 in the morning when he landed. Chen Mingsheng's mind was in turmoil. He kept telling himself that this was not right. He could almost predict how furious Manager Zhu would be if he knew about this rash action of his, yet he couldn't help himself. After getting off the plane and walking out of the airport, the cold wind outside, mixed with tiny snowflakes, instantly hit him in the face. Chen Mingsheng lowered his head, waiting for the strong wind to pass. Only when he looked up again did he realize how cold it was here. He had been solely focused on Yang Zhao when he started, without considering much else, let alone the clothes he wore. He was still wearing the early autumn outfit he had on in Kunming, a shirt, a thin jacket, and a pair of cotton trousers. The temperature was particularly low late at night. Chen Mingsheng panted, watching the white fog he exhaled with each breath. The freezing weather had one advantage: it somewhat cooled his agitated mind. The wind outside was too strong, and Chen Mingsheng quickly hailed a taxi. At this hour, cabs coming to the airport were basically squatting for fares, going without the meter and directly charging based on destination. Being a taxi driver himself, Chen Mingsheng knew the fare the driver asked for was much more than it should be, but he didn't say another word and just declared his destination. As the taxi set off, the streets were empty. Chen Mingsheng took out his phone, which he had charged in Kunming Airport. There were no missed calls or messages when he switched it on. Chen Mingsheng took a deep breath, leaned against the car seat, and looked out of the window. Under the dim street lights, he could see the falling snowflakes. With the wind, they showed strangely angled tracks. Chen Mingsheng watched the scene outside with a serene expression, pondering for a moment before finally sending a text message. The phone call came right after. Manager Zhu started with a series of harsh words. What in the world are you thinking about? Can you please tell me what you're thinking? Is now the time for such foolish behavior? How can you be so impulsive? Manager Zhu, come back right now. Chen Mingsheng looked out the window and said, I'm already here and there are no flights left for today. Manager Zhu paused for a moment, then started swearing again. I really want to punch you. Chen Mingsheng said, I will return tomorrow. His voice was perhaps too low and to suppress that Manager Zhu finally stopped scolding him. Did they make any contact with you on their end? Chen Mingsheng said, not yet. I'm currently living alone in Qihu and typically don't get disturbed at night. After a pause, he repeated, I'll go back tomorrow. Manager Zhu pondered for a moment and said, if someone calls you tomorrow, tell them you are going to see Bai Weiwei and are picking out a gift for her. Chen Mingsheng replied, okay. Think about the details in advance and get everything clear. Chen Mingsheng, okay? There was silence. On the phone, Manager Zhu also remained silent. They both listened to each other's breathing for a full half-minute. After a while, Manager Zhu spoke softly. Mingsheng, are you missing your girlfriend too much? Chen Mingsheng involuntarily gripped his phone harder, clenching his teeth but remained silent. Manager Zhu knew Chen Mingsheng's temperament and personality. He would never act so impulsively unless something had touched his heartstring. Manager Zhu said, I promise you, once this matter is over, you can go back and marry your lady. Chen Mingsheng softly answered, His response was more of an acknowledgement of Manager Zhu's words, knowing that Zhu was genuinely there for him. Manager Zhu said, It will be soon. Watching the falling snow outside, Chen Mingsheng mumbled, Soon. What does fast or slow even mean? Perhaps such nights easily stir up one's memories. Chen Mingsheng said lightly, Manager Zhu, how much longer do you plan to do this? He heard a slight sound of a lighter from the other end of the phone. It seemed that Manager Zhu had lit a cigarette and responded in a casual tone, How much longer? I don't know, I've never thought about it. Chen Mingsheng said, You've been doing this for almost 30 years, haven't you? Manager Zhu chuckled on the other side, seemingly surprised by this number too. Has it been that long? I never really paid attention. Chen Mingsheng remained silent. Manager Zhu said, If you ask me to do something else now, I couldn't. I feel like this is what my life is about. Chen Mingsheng asked, What about when Baiji's thing is over? Over. Manager Zhu laughed again. Whether it's over or not, you should know better than me. Chen Mingsheng lowered his head, speechless. He indeed should know. Manager Zhu continued on the other end. How many people have you finished off in these 7 or 8 years you've been doing this? From Mingkun at the beginning to Cao Nanshan, to Tiger Brother, and now Baiji, who you've been supporting all this while. Tell me, is there an end? The world never lacks for villains. When Yan Zhengtao was lecturing Chen Mingsheng at the police academy, he once said these words. In this world, we never lack villains. No matter how many you catch or how many you kill, no matter what happened to those who came before, others will still continuously surge forward. Why is that? As for why, I won't analyze it for you. I'm telling you this because it's both good and bad news. The bad news is that even if you work yourselves to death, you won't complete the task. The good news is, we police will never be out of a job. Chen Mingsheng remembered that he laughed out loud after hearing Yan Zhengtao's words back then. The other students around him also laughed heartily along with him. Even Yan Zhengtao himself was laughing. At that time, Chen Mingsheng didn't notice that Yan Zhengtao's laughter was different from theirs. Now, after everything he has gone through, when Chen Mingsheng recalls Yan Zhengtao's remarks, he still laughs. He thinks that his laughter now should be similar to Yan Zhengtao's laughter back then. After Baiji, there will be the next one. Manager Zhu said, I have some news for you. You should have already heard of the Burmese guy called Hydra. He started trying to make frequent connections with this side last year. We have received information from above, and we have already sent someone to keep watch. Chen Mingsheng laughed a little and said, By the sound of your voice, you seem eager for this. Manager Zhu laughed heartily and said, Being on one person all the time, we also get bored. With Baiji taken care of, it's good for us to change tastes. Chen Mingsheng said, You really know how to amuse yourself. Manager Zhu said, What's amusing myself? I tell you, I do find it fun. People who don't do this, they won't understand. Alright, let's stop here. You go see your girlfriend, and first thing tomorrow, get back here immediately. Chen Mingsheng replied, Okay. It took more than an hour by car from the airport to the entrance of Huikan Jinzuo. Both the entire residential complex and the street outside were empty. The entrance gate of the complex was closed, and there was no one in the guard room, nor were any lights on. Chen Mingsheng, leaning on his crutches, struggled to climb over the perimeter fence. His left foot fell on the damp ground and slipped, nearly causing him to fall. Chen Mingsheng's hand quickly gripped the fence. The iron sheet on top of the fence was cold and sharp, and when he lifted his hand, a cut of moderate depth was made on his palm. Chen Mingsheng took a glance back at the meter-high fence, then wiped the blood off on his jacket with his hand. He moved into the courtyard with the support of his crutches. The street lights were dim, and the snow fell slowly, fine as rain. The complex was very quiet, quietly enough to gradually calm Chen Mingsheng's initially nervous heart. He arrived at the building where Yang Zhao lived. By the entrance door, he paused for a long time next to 2 cars parked side by side. Both cars were in shades of silver. Although their colors weren't exactly the same, these subtle differences made the 2 cars appear more coordinated. Due to the snow, the car bodies were wet, blending with the vague snowy mist, as if they were far from him. Chen Mingsheng lowered his head. There was some pain in his left hand where he had scratched it on the fence at the entrance earlier. He gripped his palm tightly. The tension on the wound made it hurt less. Chen Mingsheng looked at the entrance door to the building unit, which was locked. He didn't have the access card to enter and could only ring Yang Zhao's intercom to go upstairs or wait for someone else to come out. Could he go in? Could he press her doorbell? Who was in her home right now? The snow continued to fall. Zhu Mai surprisingly woke up early. He stepped out of the guest room, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, and took a few sips. He came to the floor-to-ceiling window and was delighted to find that the snow had stopped. Finally, it stopped, Zhu Mai said, setting the water bottle on the coffee table before heading to the bathroom for a shower. When he came out all cleaned up, Yang Zhao's bedroom was still quiet. Zhu Mai shook his head with a smile. She had stayed up too late last night. In fact, Yang Zhao hadn't had a good rest for a long time. Zhu Mai didn't want to wake her up. He dressed and was ready to leave. He had given himself a vacation, and he wanted to fully enjoy the laid-back life, the first step of which was car washing. Zhu Mai carefully closed the door and headed towards the elevator. As he passed the staircase, he caught a glimpse of a shadow in the corner. Before he could react, he was pulled aside with a great force. When he came to his senses, Zhu Mai smelled a strong scent of alcohol. He was being pinned against the wall by a man. Zhu Mai looked at the man in front of him. "Oh, it's you?" Zhu Mai recognized Chen Mingsheng. Chen Mingsheng looked somewhat terrifying at this moment. He seemed to have stayed up all night, his eyes red with a light stubble on his chin. He had been drinking, and perhaps due to the alcohol, Chen Mingsheng's gaze was exceptionally gloomy. Chen Mingsheng's appearance startled Zhu Mai, who felt an indescribable sense of unease. "What are you doing here?" Zhu Mai glanced around. This was a staircase. In his understanding, no one would linger around such a place without cause. Chen Mingsheng didn't say a word. His right hand was leaning on a crutch while his left hand was tightly gripping Zhu Mai's suit. Zhu Mai glanced down and said, "Or before you explain, you could probably release your hand." Chen Mingsheng still didn't speak. Zhu Mai's expression changed slightly, and he said, "I'll say it one last time, you can let go of my hand first." "You," Chen Mingsheng finally spoke. His voice was rather deep and somewhat hoarse, with a trace of subtle harshness in his words. He told Zhu Mai word by word, "You stay away from her." Of course, Zhu Mai understood who the her in his words referred to. Hence, Zhu Mai didn't pursue the fact that Chen Mingsheng had wrinkled his clothes. He looked at Chen Mingsheng and said, "Is this a threat or advice?" Chen Mingsheng seemed genuinely drunk. He repeated his previous words. "You stay away from her." Zhu Mai sneered, "On what grounds are you saying these to me?" He looked Chen Mingsheng up and down. "You don't have the right to ask this of me." Chen Mingsheng's gaze seemed a bit cloudy. All he could see was Zhu Mai's tall figure, his handsome face, and his wet hair, which he had just washed. Chen Mingsheng's hostility grew. His hand, waist, and spine were all tense, as if he were about to exert all his strength the next moment. Zhu Mai certainly saw Chen Mingsheng's intentions, but he remained calm. He glanced to the side and said coldly, "Generally speaking, I wouldn't say such things lightly." He slowly turned his head towards Chen Mingsheng, his gaze bearing a touch of aloofness. "You're not worthy." Zhu Mai thought about Yang Zhao's exhausted demeanor, her expression standing in front of the man-made lake, her working tirelessly day and night. Finally, he thought of that painting. Looking at the man in front of him, Zhu Mai suddenly felt an unexpected surge of anger. He slowly opened his mouth, making sure that every word was clearly heard by Chen Mingsheng. "You're not worthy of being with her." Chen Mingsheng paused. "Don't you understand?" Zhu Mai raised his free hands, unbuttoning his cufflinks, saying, "Or perhaps you prefer a different way of conversation." Zhu Mai narrowed his eyes slightly, glanced at the hand that was gripping his clothes and then at Chen Mingsheng himself, remarking the manly way. With those words, Zhu Mai abruptly pushed. Chen Mingsheng, lost in thoughts, was taken aback. He was directly pushed onto the railing of the stairs behind him. Following swiftly, Zhu Mai raised his right hand and swung a brutal punch. Chen Mingsheng finally came back to his senses. He didn't have time to block the punch, so he turned his body to dodge. However, he was standing by the stairs. With his crutch unable to find a solid ground, it planted on a lower step. As a result, his right side sunk down. He had bought a lot of beers from a 24-hour convenience store last night and sat in the doorway of Yang Zhao's building drinking one can after another. Actually, given his usual alcohol tolerance, he wouldn't be drunk. But he was feeling blocked inside and had been without rest for a day and a night. After consuming several cans of beer, he did feel a bit dizzy. In the morning, he followed behind an old man who went out for exercise and entered the building. When he saw Zhu Mai coming out of Yang Zhao's home, he couldn't restrain himself. But his current physical condition couldn't handle such a fight. Besides, Zhu Mai was not a weakling, even one could say he had good physical skills. He had learned boxing in the United States and would hit the gym whenever he had time. Also, he was naturally tall, so his punches were genuinely powerful. Slightly losing consciousness, Chen Mingsheng failed to dodge the next punch. His crutch lost balance and he fell down the stairs. Zhu Mai straightened his collar, descended the stairs, and came to Chen Mingsheng's side. He whispered in Chen Mingsheng's ear, "I knew her when she was still a student. She's never been in that state, and she definitely shouldn't be. Whether it's you, me, or anyone else, no one has the right." "Sir," Zhu Mai stood up, adding finally, "the one who should stay away from her is you." Yang Zhao was awakened from her sleep by the sound of the doorbell. Her head felt slightly heavy. When she opened the door, Zhu Mai was standing outside. Yang Zhao was slightly surprised, saying, "When did you go outside?" Zhu Mai was looking down, his hand resting on the edge of the door. After a long while, he finally looked up. Yang Zhao saw his face. Zhu Mai's expression was unusually serious. He stared at Yang Zhao as if he had countless things he wanted to say. Yang Zhao waited for a while, but he didn't speak. "What are you doing up so early?" Yang Zhao asked. Zhu Mai looked at her steadily. After a while, Yang Zhao felt something was off. "What's the matter?" she asked. "Let's go back," he said. "Huh?" When Zhu Mai spoke, Yang Zhao didn't react immediately. "Go back? Where to?" "America," Zhu Mai said gravely. "Back to California, to your previous studio." Yang Zhao asked, "What's the matter with you?" "Little Zhao," Zhu Mai slowly said, "come back with me." Yang Zhao finally realized he was serious. She shook her head, only saying one word, "No." "Why are you staying here?" Zhu Mai asked. "For your brother." "Really, for your brother?" Yang Zhao replied, "The reason doesn't matter, what matters is, I won't leave." Zhu Mai gritted his teeth, not saying anything. Yang Zhao looked at Zhu Mai's face, asking, "What happened to your chin?" Zhu Mai responded, "Nothing." Yang Zhao lowered her head and leaned in a bit. "It looks a bit bruised," she commented. "It's really bruised. How did you get it?" Zhu Mai casually said, "I rolled off the bed while sleeping last night." Yang Zhao? She had no intention of probing whether Zhu Mai had really rolled off the bed. She turned around and walked into the living room. "You can order some takeout later," Yang Zhao said. "I need to go out for a while." Zhu Mai raised his eyebrows at Yang Zhao's back, asking, "Where to?" Yang Zhao replied, "Mall." Zhu Mai, "For what?" Yang Zhao said, "Buy a phone." The conversation was brief but connotative. Zhu Mai responded, "Let's go later." He thought to himself, finally, for once, he had used such a despicable trick. In the past, Zhu Mai was almost invincible in the romantic field. Therefore, he was also confident, brimming with motivation when facing any opponent. He was open about women and love, and he believed these were the freest things in the world. He also had his own norms of conduct. But today he had broken his norms. He lied to Yang Zhao. "I went down just now and they are fixing the road at the entrance. The car can't get out now, not until noon." Yang Zhao didn't doubt his words. "All right then." She went to the restroom to wash up and then called for some food delivery. "Do you want anything?" she asked Zhu Mai. Zhu Mai entered the room, closed the door and said, "Yes." Yang Zhao ordered a bowl of noodles, while Zhu Mai ordered a pot of soup. "The soup takes a long time," Yang Zhao said, "and it'll be cold by the time it arrives, and the flavor will change. It wouldn't be as good as when it was freshly made." Zhu Mai smiled at her and said, "It's okay." The food delivery took an hour and a half to arrive. Yang Zhao took the soup and asked Zhu Mai, "Do you want me to heat it up for you?" Zhu Mai nodded. Over the meal, Zhu Mai only drank a few counted sips of the soup. Yang Zhao glanced at him but made no comment on his self-inflicted situation. While Yang Zhao was eating her noodles, Zhu Mai stood up and walked to the window. The large floor-to-ceiling window fully reflected the view outside. Zhu Mai placed his hands in his suit pants and looked down at the street with a steady gaze. There was no one downstairs. Zhu Mai looked around again. The gazebo, the grass, and the small woods, none of them had Chen Mingsheng's figure. Although he had already inferred that Chen Mingsheng would leave earlier, Now that he really saw the empty path downstairs, his feeling was still subtle. This was not a victory. Zumai raised a hand, loosening the button on his collar. Even if it was a victory, it wasn't a glorious one.